United Against Malaria 2010 wasn't just a test of machinery. Once the Land Rover Discovery 4s had driven the expedition to various points on the map, some of the members felt the need to leave the comfort of the driver's seat and climb a mountain or two. But no matter the mountain, the objective was always the same: spread the word in the fight against malaria and use the energy of the Soccer World Cup to do it. And soon it was our turn to join them. We flew from Joburg to Nairobi and then on to Kilimanjaro before one final flight to meet the expedition. This is the Serenera airstrip in Tanzania, and it's the starting point of a journey we're undertaking with Land Rover. Not only to take in some of the most beautiful sights in the world, but to be part of an expedition that's got huge humanitarian importance in this part of the world. From Serenera, we headed out and explored the Serengeti and Ngorongoro crater, taking in some of the most amazing wildlife and natural beauty on the planet. Just about everywhere we looked, there were animals to be seen, from the smallest warthog to lion, leopard, elephant, hippo, and everything in between. This was the time of the migration, and amongst all of this were hundreds of thousands of wildebeest, all gathering for their trek north. And speaking of heading north, the other half of the expedition had started their ascent of the Margherita Peak, named after a Queen of Italy, not the drink. It's the highest peak in Uganda's Ruwenzori mountain range and the third highest in Africa. Despite what you may think, it seems ice and snow are a regular occurrence in Africa, as long as you know where to look. So while some of the Holgate expedition are off climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, we've taken the easy route and joined Kingsley and some of the others at the Wild Frontier tented camp some 2 degrees south of the equator. This will be home for the next 3 days, and we'll be heading out from here, spreading the anti-malaria message using the energy of the 2010 FIFA World Cup. But once again, those loony mountain climbers refused the luxury of the Discovery in favor of a few grueling nights on the rocks, this time Kilimanjaro, Africa's tallest peak and the highest freestanding mountain in the world. It wasn't a good time for all of them though, with 2 of the crew returning home suffering from altitude sickness and, ironically, malaria. Hey, isn't that Jonty Rhodes?
Yeah.
But in true Holgate style, the goal was reached, the mountain was summited, and the vuvuzela was heard from the very top of Africa. Well, it's been 2 days of some good beer and some good game viewing, but now we're down to the real reason why we're here, to see the 2010 United Against Malaria campaign in action. We're at a small village to educate the locals and hand out malaria nets. The nets, made by pharmaceutical company Vestergaard Fransen, are pre-treated with insecticide, and mosquitoes are killed on contact. The statistics on malaria deaths in Africa are frightening, and often it's the remote villages that the expedition visits that are the most affected. So with a bit of Kingsley's larger-than-life personality, the message was spread about the dangers of mosquitoes and the importance of using a net.
And the first net of the day goes to this lovely young lady that can make the sound of a mosquito.
Nando's were one of the co-sponsors of the expedition, and I was really amazed to see that rather than being just another corporate social responsibility, they took it seriously. The Nando's members of the crew handed out nets, got involved, and spoke enthusiastically about the work that's being done. I drove the Discovery 4 on its launch overseas, and when I got back to South Africa, I was so enthusiastic about how good this car is. I would tell just about anyone who would listen. And I was met with some skepticism by those who said, it's a Land Rover, it'll break down after a few years, it'll only last a couple of thousand Ks, especially if you take it off-road. Well, there's one guy who's got the experience and the knowledge to prove those naysayers just a little bit wrong.
We've been through some tough driving conditions on this expedition. We're more than halfway through the expedition. close to 10,000 kilometers of trouble-free use of the Discovery Force. But the comfort is unbelievable. You know, after a really long, hard day of potholes and really harsh conditions, you sort of slide out of the vehicle still feeling fairly refreshed. Whereas, you know, the old Defender days, you felt every kilometer that you did.
Not a moment's trouble from any of the vehicles. Even the sometimes overworked air suspension system held out for the entire duration. With the convoy at full strength, we headed back to the Serenera part of the Serengeti to take in a soccer match. Well, it's not exactly Brazil versus Spain, but it's the energy of the game that counts. United Against Malaria are using the spirit of the World Cup in Africa for the first time to help spread their message against malaria. And they're organising games like this at schools throughout the expedition. Where there were kids getting malaria nets, there was soccer being played, complete with winning team and man of the match prizes.
Well done, well done.
One of the most eye-opening parts of the trip was a visit to a local hospital. I was told that it was one of the best equipped and run in the region, but seeing just how basic things were there really brought home the importance of the work being done by United Against Malaria. We've just done a net drop at Karatu Hospital, and it's amazing to see the amount of effort and energy that United Against Malaria, Kingsley, Holgate and Land Rover have put in to delivering what is really a simple solution to such an amazingly complex and huge problem in this part of the world. There was a little bit of car trouble in between all of this, sort of. As you'd imagine, travelling through Africa for 6 weeks requires a lot of logistics, so you can only take so much with you. In this case, they've lost another tyre. I think they're down to their last 2 for the journey home. And to compound things, 19-inch tyres aren't exactly a popular size in Africa. You know, I've been lucky enough to drive a lot of different Land Rovers in some interesting parts of the world. I've driven Defenders and Range Rover Sports through the jungles of Southeast Asia. I've driven Discovery 4 like this one through the untamed parts of Scotland. But somehow being on this trip in a car this good and being even a small part of an expedition that is as amazing as United Against Malaria is, in one of the most beautiful parts in the world, it's such a special time during the migration of these millions of wildebeest, is just one of the greatest experiences of my life. After a string of orphanages, schools, hospitals and villages, it was time to head home. Well, it's been 6 weeks, 7,000 kilometers and 12 different countries, and this is the final stop on the United Against Malaria 2010 campaign in the village of Karatu. Our week with the expedition has been eye-opening, to say the least, in a lot of ways as well. Not just to see the poverty and the desperation of some of these villages, but to see the amazing work that Kingsley Holgate and his team are doing with their sponsors like Land Rover. The other amazing thing is to see just how well these Land Rover Discoveries have performed. They've covered all kinds of terrains in all kinds of conditions, and they've performed absolutely faultlessly.